What's up, YouTube, and welcome to Codename Scream. I am that horror guy, and make sure to go ahead and like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications for all things horror. Welcome to another episode of SLASHETHON. I did want to go ahead and clear some of the confusion that's been going on, and I apologize in advance as well. We did move ahead as far as this is concerned with our round 2 contestants voted by you guys, and because mainly we actually had such an influx of votes for the Jason and Kemper episode, the most we've gotten to date. So thank you to everybody that's passed the word along about this to someone they've known. That is actually what made this a lot more of a cutthroat competition. No pun intended. Maybe there was. You'll never know. But with your guys' votes, we're going to go ahead and advance Jason Voorhees. That was a very tight race again. So he will move on to the round 2 that has already existed. This is this weird universe we've created here, where some are ahead in time, some are right here in the present. I don't know. We're starting to get a little crazy. We'll have a visualizer here soon for you guys, though, where it'll help keep track of things, make it a little bit more concise, if you would. So a couple weeks ago we discussed that this was going to be a matchup. We have 2 more matchups after today for first round, and then everyone will be caught up. So today's episode, our horror contender is going to be the identity known as Ghostface from the Scream franchise. And then for our true crime terrible person, we're going to have Danny Rolling, known as the Gainesville Ripper. You guys know how we do this here. So without further ado, Ghostface came to us in 1996 in Wes Craven's film Scream. It was a big game changer for not only the slasher genre, but in horror as a whole. To this point, horror was kind of seen as like a dead or even dying, almost dead genre, just because of the 70s and 80s with so many direct-to-video and the plethora of sequels that came from the big names. So this was the first film to really kind of revitalize it for the new generation in the 90s at the time. Before this, Freddy Krueger was the one that kind of helped, but then those sequels is what really started to kind of just dive bomb the horror community as a whole. But so each one of the people that have donned the Ghostface mask in the course of the 4 films, it's been something along the lines of a revenge storyline, a fame-seeking storyline, a peer pressure storyline. All those things have come and gone. So in the first film, we had Billy Loomis and his best friend Stu Macker, and Billy Loomis is dating Sidney Prescott, the main protagonist, the one that is the clear motive for everybody across 4 films. Everybody wants to kill Sidney. So Sidney, whatever you did, terrible. Oh wait, we knew exactly what she did here. Nothing. It was her mother that did it. Literally and figuratively. Billy Loomis's father had an affair with Sidney's mother, ended up having his mother leave over that. So it became a classic revenge story. So they killed Sidney's mother, spoiler alert, and then on the anniversary of her death, attempt to kill Sidney, put it on her dad, as he's lost his mind. He lost his wife a year ago, and now he's gonna, take everybody else out. Moving forward, Scream 2, we ended up getting Billy's mother and a fame-seeking college student that is a classmate of Sidney's. Also, her now boyfriend's best friend. And again, we're getting that classic revenge plot. So Billy's mother is upset and devastated by the fact that Sidney killed her son. And also her mother slept with her husband, breaking off that marriage. It's just becoming a whole terrible cyclical event. So we move to the 3rd film, and in this one, we actually get Sidney's brother that was actually removed. She had no idea of his existence. Sidney's mother had slept with the director and pretty much just wrote him off entirely. And so he is now in the fold to try and kill Sidney. You got the life I never had. He was also the only person that has donned the Ghostface mask that did not have an accomplice, but followed that whole revenge scenario that was a recurring theme. Getting into the fourth film, which is now starting a new run of the franchise. It ended up being Sydney's cousin taking on the mask, and then a dude that is just pretty much head over heels in love. Going back to the whole Stu from the first film scenario where it was kind of peer pressure, you know, if you do this, I'll do this for you type of thing. So it's kind of sad overall, but so as a whole, Ghostface was actually inspired by the Gainesville Ripper from Kevin Williamson. So he penned the script of Ghostface in 95, released the film in 96, and the murders for the Gainesville Ripper happened in 1990, so it was a very short period of time. But it made sense when you go back and watch the first film and compare it to the actual murders that we are going to get to here shortly. The costume itself, the mask is based off of the famous Edvard Munch painting. It was one of those, just when they were looking for a costume for the character itself, they came across it at a costume store. So, and then that was what, with the storyline, it's an easily accessible costume for everybody. So it's easy for someone to get this costume, easy to confuse things, as we see in Scream 2 in the opening, where they're all seeing Stab, breaking the whole weird, like, fourth wall type stuff going on in there, but everyone's wearing the mask. So when they kill the girl in the opening scene of Scream 2, no one believes that it's actually happening because everyone's wearing the mask. It was crazy. But so that's all we really have as far as Ghostface is concerned. I'm not going to get too in-depth on his side of things, just because, with that being said, this week we are going to be covering Ghostface extensively. So I don't want to take away from that for you guys. I'm really looking forward to breaking down some of those movies then. So moving on to Danny Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper. Born May 26, 1954, he was sentenced to death for 5 murders in Gainesville in 1994 and executed by lethal injection in 2006. He was found guilty for 5 murders over the course of 4 days in August of 1990. He did confess to a triple murder in Shreveport, Louisiana, where he is natively from. There's not been a conclusive thing there. He did do a written confession while in prison about it, and apology about it. He did not get tried for that, though. So it is believed to be a total of 8 murders, but he was only found guilty for the 5 that were publicized. So as I mentioned, originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, his father was a police officer for Shreveport PD. So one thing you'll notice about when we cover all these serial killers, the recurring theme is they've had a terrible upbringing. There's no difference here with Gainesville Ripper. Danny's father did not want him from birth and was extremely physically and mentally abusive to both him and his brother, as well as their mother, Claudia. There was one scenario I had seen while doing research where his mother went to the hospital because her husband had attempted to cut herself with a razor blade. So a lot of weird manipulation, psychological manipulation tactics going on even. Absolutely terrible upbringing. There was a point in time where he actually had Danny pinned to the ground, handcuffed him, then had police come pick him up because he was embarrassed by him. So he just had one of the worst upbringings I've seen so far in the research side of things for our serial killers. When he was a teenager, got arrested multiple times for robberies and was actually caught voyeur, spying on a woman getting dressed. In 1990 May, he did attempt to kill his father during an argument. His father did somehow, in this debacle, lose an eye and an ear. So I don't know if this is like, the whole Mike Tyson fight thing with the ear going on. Who knows? Kind of crazy regardless. So just in a few short months, in August of 1990 is when Danny Rolling did move forward with killing 5 college students, 1 from Santa Fe College, from the University of Florida. He was having a burglary and robbery spree, and he would mutilated his victims' bodies, decapitated one of them, and he would sometimes pose with them using mirrors. So as much as we will have certain segments labeled NSFW, this is YouTube. Some of you may not want to see this, and I totally understand. So we're going to give the abridged version, if you would. One victim taped their mouth shut, stabbed him to death. She attempted to fend him off while doing so. Another one taped her mouth, bound her wrists together behind her back, threatened her with a knife as he went ahead and cut all of her clothing off. He then went ahead and raped her, and then forced her down face down on the floor, stabbed her 5 times in the back, posed with the bodies in sexually provocative positions. He then took a shower before leaving the apartment. Dirty job. There was a show about that one. Another one, he just broke straight into the back of the house, placed somebody in a chokehold, taped their mouth shut again, bound their wrists together, led them into the room, and then went ahead and did the exact same thing where we went ahead and raped them face down, stabbed them multiple times in the back of the and in the heart from the back as well. This particular body he went ahead and decapitated, and then posed her head on the shelf facing the corpse. So it added the shock factor for whomever were to find them, if you would. So at the time with all these murders going on, it started gaining widespread media locally. So the college started taking a lot of precautions as far as curfews were concerned, encouraging people to be in pairs when outside, try to stay in rooms together as well. There were a couple of roommates that unfortunately fell victim shortly thereafter these curfews came into place. Manny Taboda, and he was actually the only male of the entire killing spree that Gainesville Ripper went on. And his roommate was Tracy Pauls, who unfortunately also fell victim the same evening. He broke in through their sliding glass door. He found Taboda asleep in one of the bedrooms, had a struggle with him, ended up killing him. With Pauls, went down to, she had heard the commotion, came down the hallway. She tried to barricade herself in the room. Danny Rolling went through the door, and then we got the MO. Mouth taped, wrist bound, the whole 9. Yeah, 3 stabs to the back this time. He ended up posing Paul's body, but left Taboda's. So again, he was the only man that was in this killing spree, and the only one he didn't pose. So it was a little odd that he chose to do that. So September 7th, 1990, he was arrested in Ocala, Florida on a burglary charge. During the investigation, they matched his tools to the crime scenes of the other murders. He was also living in a small, secluded area just outside of where students were attending the school. And there they discovered audio diaries he had made, alluding to his crime. In November 1991, he was charged with several counts of murder. Nearly 4 years after the murders is when they were looking to bring this to trial. When this began, he claimed that the motive for why he did this, he wanted to become a superstar like Ted Bundy. He was also diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and paraphilia. I feel like with that diagnosis, with all these disorders going on, with the absolutely terrible upbringing he had, that drove him to look at someone like Ted Bundy and want to be this superstar serial killer. So in 1994, before the trial could even begin, he went ahead and pled guilty to all of his charges. Kind of just threw everything through a loop. There is an unsolved triple murder in November 4th, 1989 in Shreveport, Louisiana that I did discuss at the beginning, that he had actually confessed to doing. So he was executed by lethal injection October 25th, 2006 at the Florida State Prison. He did attempt a last-ditch appeal effort, and and the U.S. Supreme Court denied it. Pronounced it at 6:13 p.m. Eastern Time on that date. And that was when he also had his written statement with his spiritual advisor. His legacy as far as things are concerned, he inspired Scream. There's multiple movies about him, multiple books written about him. There are a plethora of places to go look for this. So check out if you want to know some more and get more into the details, if you would, of the crime side of things. Again, we just kind of did the abridged version, the PG version, whatever version you want to call it, that didn't involve me getting into too much detail. So let's go ahead and go to the points. Let's see who would take this thing in my eyes. All right, so now we know we start off with a fair 6 on either side. So starting off with the 3 that are recurring in every episode. For our body count, we're going to go ahead and take one off of Gainesville Ripper immediately. With that, over the course of the Scream franchise, with my 2-to-1 ratio for on-screen versus actual deaths, there's a 16-to-5. I'm only giving him the 5 strictly on the fact that those are what he was charged with. So just over 3 times the amount of body count there. So unfortunately, that's where he's going to go ahead and lose the points there. For motive, we're going to have a Slashathon first, and we are actually going to give that point back right to Gainesville Ripper. The reason that I'm giving that point back and putting it back to a 6 on either side, the motive side. As I discussed with the Scream side of things with the Ghostface identity, every motive was to some degree justifiable. It was always some form of revenge and peer pressure, and you kind of sympathized with the villain in some aspects. On the Gainesville Ripper side of thing, his motive, though he claimed the superstar status just before the trial that never happened, I will go as far as to say I feel like a lot of it was driven based off of the disorders that he was diagnosed with. Clearly just not sound mind. And also with the upbringing he had, it was inevitable he was going to become a killer. And either side of things, they're both just terrible situations. And I could not state that one's motive was more important than the other. So for a first in our Slashathon, we're giving back a point. So moving on to the third one that follows per episode is our most brutal kill. And that is where we're going to go ahead and take a point away from Ghostface. Even though over the course of 4 films, we've seen some pretty over-the-top kills, I would say the most brutal one to me, personally, is in Scream 3, when there's the fax machine going off in the home, and he goes back in to read the fax, and it's like, the winner is whoever smells the gas, and then the house goes up. That just was a complete game changer as far as kills were concerned on screen, and just, that is brutal. It's also terrifying to think about. And let's be real, normally with the whole MO side of things, I tend to take points away, as we've historically seen, but that was just a disgusting MO, and I couldn't, no. Yeah, sorry, even though there's dudes being blown up and people getting caught in garage doors and the whole 9 going on over there, no. Can't touch that with the real deal. So next we're going to take a point away from both sides for our 3 show specific ones. They both had media coverages and during the murder sprees. In the first one we saw it more so with Scream, and with it being inspired directly from the events that Gainesville Ripper did, but both during their time did have media coverages. Neither one had the upper hand as far as being kind of like a atmospheric phantom, like, if you would, that we saw with some of the other killers and whatnot, where there was suspense and whatnot. They were just, though we didn't know who was doing it on either side here, of course, across 4 films, and of course with Danny rolling, we didn't know which one was doing what, but either way, there were still coverages. I'm also going to take a point away from both sides, again, for the show specifics, and that is because no matter who wears the Ghostface mask, they always die at the end of the films. And Danny Rowling was executed by lethal injection. So neither one of them are living to tell the tale in any sort of way. So we're both losing a point there. We both died. And our third and final point for our show specifics, I'm going to take one away from Gainesville Ripper. He focused mainly on women. Out of the 5 murders, as we had discussed previously, 4 of them were women. And for me, anything towards women is abhorrent at best. And I sorry, man, you're losing points just off of that. So, once again, as a recurring theme across every matchup we've done, we have another tiebreaker. So, we all know exactly what's going to happen here. So, to preside over our tiebreaker and help us win with a victor, please welcome the Honorable Harold J. Bones. What's up, man? So, who's going to win this thing? Silly me, again. I don't know why I even bring him around. He's dead. So, this leaves it up to you guys to decide. So, we're going to have to go ahead and do as we've been doing to this point, and also make sure to pass the word along. Let's keep these votes coming in the way and the frequency they were last week. So, you can comment below. You can send me a message on Instagram. You can send me a message on Twitter. You can email me. No matter which avenue you take, make sure to use the hashtag ScreamGhostface or ScreamGainesville for your vote, whichever way you decide to go with things here. And next week, after we've compiled all these votes, I will announce the winner from this episode in our next one. Whomever you choose for this episode will be the one to take on Jason Voorhees for round 2. So keep that in mind. As we said, even with all the stats provided, even with my view on how things should go, ultimately you guys decide this. So if you have a clear favorite and have a dream matchup, let's make it happen, right? So next week, we're bringing in my absolute favorite horror villain of all time with Michael Myers. I've been ecstatic to bring in Michael Myers since I started this entire Slashathon, and I cannot wait to have him represented for our horror side, and he will be facing off against the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez. So we are going to have quite the competition next week. You're definitely not going to want to miss that. So until then, scare you later, YouTube.